BYU with a big win over Cincinnati, 26-14. We're going to break down this Big 12 matchup and talk about what it means for these teams going forward. Cincinnati was playing at home. We knew this was going to be a tough game. I talked about it in the preview. Playing at Cincinnati is a tough environment to play. And it was clear that BYU is struggling with that early. Kalani Sitake even talked about it at halftime. He said his team was struggling with the crowd noise. It was clearly affecting them, and that's why the game was so close early in the game. It was 10-7 heading into halftime, and this was a game that was very uncertain for both sides. Now, when you look at what Cincinnati was able to do, you saw some explosive plays, but they struggled with BYU's defense. And I thought they did some nice things to be able to kind of combat that. You saw a nice double move by Cyrus Allen where he's running essentially out and up, but he does like a reverse pivot, and it freezes the defender enough to get a big play. And Cincinnati did it a couple of times. They did kind of reverse pivots instead of some outbreak. When you're doing an outbreaking route, you usually just plant your right foot and you go out. But Cincinnati was doing a couple different things where they're doing like a reverse pivot, and I haven't really seen that as much. So that was very interesting to see in terms of route running. So that was an interesting approach by the Bearcats. But this was a team that we knew that they were going to have to create explosive plays if they wanted to have a chance. And early in the game, that just wasn't really happening. It was very inconsistent by Brennan Sorsby and this passing attack. I mean, Sorsby had 300 yards, and that's probably going to surprise a lot of people. It might be the quietest 300-yard performance that you'll ever see. He was trying. He's competing so much. There were drops, overthrows, pressure. BYU did a great job of throwing off this offense and giving them a chance to succeed. And I thought that BYU had the perfect game plan for their offense against Cincinnati's defense. Because where is Cincinnati's strength? On the interior of the defensive line and at linebacker. You have a number of players. Dante Corleone's the biggest one that everybody's going to point to. But I thought that BYU did a great job of neutralizing their biggest threats and letting LJ Martin do some damage against smaller players. Lots of outside zone, counters, anything to get him on the edge or near the tackles. It was very evident that's what they were trying to do. They wanted to get LJ Martin against a linebacker, against a defensive back. The number of times there were corners and safeties trying to make tackles on LJ Martin, not a good formula no matter who's facing BYU. Martin finishes the day 32 carries, 222 yards, averaged nearly 7 yards per carry, and 2 touchdowns. They wanted to get him on the outside as much as possible and get him in a mismatch where he's running over a smaller defender or he's making them wish that they didn't play. It was a smart move by BYU because they had a size advantage on the outside, not just with LJ Martin, but even their wide receivers. Their wide receivers had a major size advantage against Cincinnati's corners. Both corners are 5'9". You had bigger wide receivers like Parker Kingston, JoJo Phillips. You had Chase Roberts, who misses the whole second half. That's something to keep an eye on for the rest of the playoff or for the rest of the season heading into the playoff. Chase Roberts is a big part of this offense. He has been a consistent player, and for the first half of the season, a big reason why this passing attack found success with a freshman quarterback. Bear Bachmeier found his footing, probably a lot thanks to Chase Roberts. And if he can't go, that is a big time change that they'll need to adapt to. And I thought that they did a good job of doing that. I thought that they get it in the second half. They get an interception to start the second half. Cincinnati, it's a terrible underthrow by Brendan Sorsby, one of his biggest mistakes of the day. And BYU gets the ball back and proceeds to march the ball down the field. Lots of misdirection where they're running, a fake to the end around. They're running various different things to get Cincinnati going one way, and they go the other. They also did a healthy dose of LJ Martin and Bear Bachmeier runs. That's always going to be a successful thing to do. And they did a great job of just marching down the field. They didn't even let that affect them. They just went on with business as usual. So that's a great thing for this offense. They deal with adversity the best way they know, which is focus on their strengths and make it happen. They made it happen in the second half, and they did a great job of pulling away in this one. So when you look at, I think that Cincinnati had opportunities that they also missed. So if you're BYU, there are some things that you need to work on, because Cincinnati had 3 missed field goals. And at the time of the third missed field goal, they would have been in a much better position. I believe they would have been winning the game if he would have made all 3 of them in that point. So Cincinnati could have been winning this game. The 3 missed field goals cost you the game. Now, the difference was 12 points, but that was a late touchdown by LJ Martin. And at that point, if you were up, it would have been a much different scenario. BYU wouldn't have had the ball where it had it, and it would have been a much different game. So the missed field goals, killer. Just absolutely killed this team. But then also just special team blunders in general. The offsides on the 4th and 3 for BYU in the fourth quarter. That allows them to get a first down, keeps the drive going, and just, again, special team blunders did not do anything good for Cincinnati. It cost them dearly, and it was a big difference in the game. If they don't make those mistakes, Cincinnati might win this game if they didn't make those mistakes. So that's something that you have to feel a little bit frustrated with. And I think that if you're Scott Satterfield, I'm going to guess he's very disappointed that his team did not execute at key moments and did not make the smart plays, or just make the plays, make the kicks at key moments. That's a hard part. And for BYU, you have to understand that that's how close you were to losing this game. So yes, it was a good win to be able to go into Nippert Stadium and be able to do that. They didn't make many mistakes. There weren't a ton of, they didn't turn the ball over. But you also have to understand that 3 missed field goals and multiple turnovers, which is not BYU's fault, but if the teams they're going to face, if they get to the Big 12 championship, they're going to face a Texas Tech team that isn't going to do that. If they make the college football playoff, they're going to face teams that aren't going to do that. Do you have the talent to be able to win a game without the other team making as many mistakes? That is a big question. Now, health-wise, there are the concerns. Chase Roberts, his injury is going to be monitored. Bear Bachmeier had a play where he was grimacing quite a bit. That's something to keep an eye on. That is something to pay attention to, because the health of this team is going to be a big indicator of their success going forward. So a good win. They clearly had a great game plan. They executed it perfectly. And I thought they did a lot of good things to expose the advantages that they had over Cincinnati. So a good win for BYU gives you some momentum heading into the final week, and then potentially the Big 12 championship game, and then potentially the college football playoff. So keep winning, obviously, but BYU has some things now to look at in terms of what they can fix. They look at some of the players that they need to get healthy. If they get those things to happen, they're going to be in good position. For Cincinnati, you have to feel like this was a lost opportunity. The mistakes ultimately cost this team, and that's disappointing. Again, Brendan Sorsby, 25 of 38, 300 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 pick. Also led the team with 38 yards rushing. And honestly, I'm surprised that they did not have more rushing yards, because it felt like this rushing attack was much better than what we saw. So overall, Cincinnati just probably, I think that if you're a Cincinnati fan, you're probably feeling disappointed, like this one got away from you. And how do you fix that going forward? Because this is going to be a season that had so much more potential and could have been so much better, but it came up short in certain moments. How do you fix that going forward? That's up to Scott Satterfield to fix. But I think there's a lot of good things still with this team. And again, Nippert Stadium, the fans deserve a lot of credit. This is a great environment, especially in late November. and it was a great place to play if you're a Cincinnati team that was looking to make a run. The fan base was electric, made life a little bit more difficult for BYU than it would have been normally, and that is something that you can take and continue doing moving forward. But a disappointing loss for sure. BYU still keeps their goals intact and has a bright future if they can continue doing some of the things that they're doing.